Oh, there it is. There the old merch for the benefit of those who are watching on YouTube. Yeah. I must say, the most comfy t-shirts imaginable. I have a bunch of them myself. This is my workout shirt of choice. And early this morning, I worked out and I am still wearing the t-shirt. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Mr. President, if you're going to try and follow my legal advice, please do a better job at execution. I will explain in just a moment. The Wednesday poll question asks this: will President Trump offer clemency to Ghislaine Maxwell? Will President Trump offer clemency, a pardon, a commutation, some form of clemency to Ghislaine Maxwell? Thank you to my friends at Parks Casino. I'm excited to tell you who's going to be rocking the Excite Center at Parks Casino, my casino of choice located in the Philly burbs. A hot, hot day in the Northeast, although the weather is going to break and it could be worse. If we were on the West Coast, we'd be worried about that tsunami potential. But less than an hour from Delaware, less than 2 hours from New York, proximal to the whole Northeast corridor, is Parks Casino. And the lineup is just incredible. Aaron Lewis has been announced for December 19, UB40 on September 6. I hate to tell you, that's just around the corner. Australian Pink Floyd coming with the 50th anniversary of Wish You Were Here. The Revivalists are coming, roots rock with a modern twist. The tour is called All in the Family, 10 Years of Men Among Mountains. Classic rockers, Kansas. Yeah, baby, Left Overture. Anybody remember Carry On My Wayward Son? Of course we do. The Psychedelic Furs and guest Gary Newman on October 10. Friday, October 24, Everclear, the Sparkle and Fade 30th Anniversary Tour. Almost Queen, a tribute to Queen on October 25. November 15, Bill Murray and his Blood Brothers for just one night. Tickets are available for all these shows at parksparxcasino.com. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yesterday at Smerconish.com, 35,816 votes were cast. 35,806. I don't think that the poll question warranted as lopsided a response as it generated. On balance, I asked, are President Trump's tariffs helping or hurting the U.S. economy? A caller yesterday said, it's too soon, Michael, for you to be asking this question. There might be truth in that, but I'll just ask it again. 86.85% said hurting. Voters on the poll question, I guess, unpersuaded by the fact that the stock market is at record levels, unemployment 4 or so percent, interest rates not what Trump would want them to be, but not crazy at 4.25%, and seemingly inflation having been tamed. And I said yesterday that Bill Maher was the inspiration for the poll question. He said in an episode just released this week of his Club Random podcast, which is terrific, by the way, quote, just to take an example of tariffs. Now, I remember that I, along with probably most people, were saying at the beginning that by July 4th, the economy was going to be tanked. But that didn't happen. It could happen. I'm just saying that's reality. So let's work first from the reality that not from just I hate Trump, because that's boring. It doesn't get us anywhere and leads you to dishonesty. The truth is, said Bill Maher, I don't know what the strategy is, but the stock market is at record highs. I drive around and I don't see a country that's depressed at all. One more thing I would just add to yesterday's poll question from Axios this morning. President Trump is winning the global trade battle with a series of deals that are resulting so far in big concessions. But it left our voters unpersuaded. Okay, will President Trump offer clemency to Ghislaine Maxwell? When you open today's Smerconish.com daily newsletter, and for goodness sakes, if you're not a subscriber, you ought to be, because it's free and it's worthy, and I painstakingly hand select 20 aggregated links to include in each day's newsletter. And today's installment via Substack includes an essay from Tina Brown, the former Vanity Fair editor, former guest of mine here. By the way, just terrific, really, really a terrific radio and television guest. But in this essay that is in Smerconish.com, and there's no paywall, you might have to register, but there's no paywall, a lot of detail about Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia Giuffre, whose life had a tragic outcome. She took her life. She was an Epstein victim. That I think you need to read to assess the role or be reminded of the role that Ghislaine Maxwell played vis-a-vis Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to read just one paragraph. These are Tina Brown's words. In Virginia Giuffre's unpublished memoir, Billionaires Playboy Club, which was submitted as evidence in her lawsuit against Ghislaine, she tells how she first met Ghislaine when she was working as a 16-year-old locker room girl at Mar-a-Lago in the summer of 2000. Giuffre recalls that she was reading a primer about massage therapy when she was approached by a tall, poised woman with a glass-cut English accent, who mentioned that she knew a rich guy who was looking for a traveling masseuse. The career opportunity turned out to be more than a back rub. The depraved complicity between Epstein and Ghislaine was immediately clear to Giuffre when she joined them at his Palm Beach mansion. She alleges that Epstein and Ghislaine laughed together as Ghislaine removed Giuffre's bra and love heart panties. Ghislaine, she says, demonstrated how Epstein liked to have his nipples pinched and instructed her to straddle him until, quote, he finished. He apparently approved of Virginia's performance. Quote, she's a keeper. Giuffre says he told Maxwell after they showered, according to Giuffre's attorney, Brad Edwards. It's really grisly testimony. It's really grisly testimony. And now that Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted of aiding a sex offender, says she's willing to provide information to a congressional committee as soon as next month during a deposition, but only if she's granted immunity or is pardoned. That's according to a letter from her attorney that's been obtained by a variety of news sources. The attorney said that if Trump were to pardon Maxwell or commute her sentence, she would be willing and eager to testify openly and honestly in public before Congress in Washington. If those conditions are not agreed to, she'll have no choice but to invoke her Fifth Amendment rights. The House Oversight Committee says there's no chance that they'll offer that level of protection to her. I opened by saying, President Trump, if you're going to follow my advice, please do a better job on execution. And that's because on radio and on CNN on Saturday, I said that I don't think he's going to win these binary issues where he says one thing and the Wall Street Journal says another. He says one thing and Pam Bondi says another. And they ought to own it. If the extent of his involvement with Epstein is that he had befriended a crumb and that he was not involved in anything illicit, because he's acting like he's got something to hide, something deep-seated that he's got to hide. I said, and I'm not going to repeat it all here, but if you made a submission to the birthday book, then own it. You're in good company, and you simply say, if it's truthful, I made submissions, honored requests for greetings of all kinds, anniversaries, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, whatever it was. So the idea that my name and submission are in that birthday book is no big deal. Similarly, there are probably thousands in the investigative records pertaining to the Epstein case possessed by DOJ. Of course I'm in them. I knew the guy. You know, we spent social time together. But when he denies, it just makes you wonder what else he's not telling you. So in the last 2 days, most recently en route home from Scotland yesterday, he has spoken to the media, and on Air Force One yesterday said that he was upset that Epstein was, quote, taking people who worked for me. The women, he said, were taken out of the spa hired by him. In other words, gone. And I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people. And when it happened again, he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. And then he was asked, well, is Virginia Giuffre one of those that you're talking about? He said, yeah, he stole her. The president makes it sound like he had a really good Michelin chef at Mar-a-Lago. And damn it, Jeffrey Epstein came along and hired that person away. What exactly does that mean? I mean, it warrants follow-up questions. Why exactly are you saying, were you offended, Mr. President, by the fact that he hired someone who was underage, or just that he took one of your employees? Because if he's saying that he was upset that Epstein was hiring someone who was underage, then he's acknowledging an awareness of Epstein and young girls. It's just a terrible, he's like trying to say more, but he's only getting himself deeper as far as I'm concerned. Aaron Blake had a good piece for CNN talking about now the differing accounts that Trump has offered or the White House has offered or that others have offered, all these contradictions. And he points out that in 2019, a Washington Post report said that the falling out between the two men was something very specific. It was about a bankrupted oceanfront property called Maison de l'Amitié. I don't know if I got that right, okay? So was it he stole your employees or you fought over the oceanfront estate that has the hard to pronounce, at least for me, name? There's also this anecdote from Roger Stone's 2016 book. I didn't remember this either, in which he quoted Trump citing how Epstein's swimming pool was full of beautiful young girls. And then a quote from Trump, "How nice, I thought. He let the neighborhood kids use his pool." And there are more of these sort of nuggets now coming to light that just don't seem to be in sync with what President Trump said yesterday from Air Force One. One other element as you're voting on today's poll question to keep in mind. This is from a Washington Post summary, like a sunrise summary from WashPo today that I just thought was well done and a nice tight summary of Maxwell's involvement. Washington Post said Maxwell was arrested in 2020 on charges that she groomed and sexually abused underage girls alongside Epstein. Epstein died in jail in 2019 before going to trial, but Maxwell's case was heard in court in 2022. Her trial focused on 6 girls who said they were abused because of Maxwell, but prosecutors argued that the 6 were a small part of a much larger criminal enterprise. Quote, "The defendant acted as an organizer and leader of a massive operation that spanned many years," the government said in one legal filing. "In operating as the lady of the house and as Epstein's right hand, the defendant was responsible for overseeing and organizing extensive logistics involved in facilitating the sexual abuse of multiple minors and ensuring a culture of silence that prevented that scheme from being uncovered." Maxwell's lawyers argued that she was being punished for Epstein's crimes since he could no longer face charges. The judge disagreed and sentenced her to 20 years in prison beyond what federal guidelines suggested. One final note, that Tina Brown piece that is in today's newsletter, the Smerconish.com daily newsletter, she comes to the exact same conclusion that I offered to all of you here. Well, first of all, on CNN on Saturday and then on Monday on POTUS, which is namely that Todd Blanche was on a mission to come back from his meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell with the names of high-profile Democrats who they could then point to as being the real culprits in all of this. And that's precisely what I've been saying. So go to Smerconish.com and tell me whether there's going to be some offer of clemency extended. And I'm not saying a timeline, so it could be post midterm elections, which I think is most likely. But at some point, is Ghislaine Maxwell going to be provided with clemency, a pardon or commutation specifically by President Trump? That's the question. Not whether he should, because obviously he shouldn't. And he shouldn't because you couldn't believe a word that comes out of her mouth, right? No matter what she says, given her record. But is he gonna do it? That is what I'm asking today at Smerconish.com. Okay? So go and cast your ballot. Go and cast your ballot on today's Wednesday poll question. Like and subscribe. If you are watching on YouTube, by all means, set yourself up for notifications. And if you have one of these gems, when do I get to say that the merch shirts are now vintage? Because that's the way they feel to me. I love them. I'm not even selling them. We don't even have any more. But they're fun stuff. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, gang, thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.